Chapter 13. It was midnight, and Siobhan was at the kitchen table in her small cottage, cradling a large glass of Merlot and considering the day from hell. That afternoon Jemima had stormed back into the hall, laden with bags full of new designer clothes. She'd thrown them at her, and demanded that she hang them up. When Siobhan tried to point out that Jemima was finally out of wardrobe space, she had screamed like a banshee. "Order more fucking wardrobes, then." Jemima headed straight into the ensuite, and judging from the sounds of it, she'd taken one of her collection of vibrators in there with her. Siobhan followed in her wake to the bedroom, blithely removing 2 armfuls of barely worn garments and replacing them with the new things. It filled up 2 black sacks, and she put them in her Fiat 500. Jemima wouldn't even notice when she started wearing them. Keeping one ear out for footsteps from above, she'd slipped Jay's phone out of her bag. The call log listed the last known number as Flora's landline. Siobhan drew in a breath. It could mean nothing, but Jemima had no real reason to reach out to the girl. She never dealt with the help, so the only other option was Evan. Not quite sure how to handle it, she called Nathan and Luca, asking if they'd had a client pushing for extras lately. When she promised no repercussions, she managed to get Luca at least to confess that he'd gone a little further with someone fitting Jemima's description. In London, women with Jemima's clinically seasoned look might be 10 a penny, but this particular client paid extra to get him to Newmarket, and Siobhan had an awful feeling about it. Poor Luca. Siobhan almost felt sorry for him. He may have been well recompensed, but it sounded like he'd fallen prey to a sexual deviant. Once she got him talking, he confessed in his suspiciously over-egged Italian. "Siobhan, my bumhole, she never be the same. After the green banana that not come out like she go in. I almost have to go to the A&E with the monkey asshole." Even with his charmingly offended assassination of the English language, Siobhan struggled to find Luca's experience amusing, and the worry was with her for hours after leaving work. Abandoning any attempt to sleep, she'd come downstairs in her dressing gown. Luca had sworn blind it was her that called him, which meant that Jay might have tried the same trick on Evan, cleverly finagling a meeting. So wittingly, or unwittingly, he might have performed in some manner for Jemima. Judging by her mood, he'd either not gone through with it, or at least not delivered satisfaction. Siobhan couldn't imagine Evan agreeing to fruit-related skullduggery. Genetically sensible Scotsmen wouldn't stand for that kind of behaviour. At least she was pretty sure Evan and Sean Connery wouldn't, probably not Gerard Butler either. She took a large slug from her glass, furious that yet again Jemima had played her, implicating her involvement in something this mortifying. Siobhan genuinely liked Evan and hid the disappointment at his lack of interest behind a veneer of wolfish bravado. It was hard to be mad that he'd chosen the competition when the competition was as sweet as Flora, but would he have risked hurting the girl for money? Worse than that, would he have slept with Jemima if he truly understood the repercussions? With Jemima involved, none of this would stay secret, that much was certain. On top of which, there was also the spectre of Gabriel Smith, and what that would mean for all of them. Jay must know he was out of prison, and the sneaky bitch never thought to mention it. That bastard must be the reason the import dog brought in from Spain ended up on the side of the road with a mangled leg. Jemima had insisted Siobhan kept her silence and had her act like it was just any other poodle, which meant it wasn't luck when the vet found no microchip. Somebody must have cut that thing out of him. Mr. Hartley then innocently handed poor Matteo, or Trike, straight back to the devil in the guise of being rescued. So much for being stolen. Jemima probably gifted that dog to Gabriel, knowing he'd do whatever degenerate act he could think of. Jay had hated the dog from the moment he arrived, because no matter how hard she tried, he wouldn't fit under the measure. Trike had committed the crime of growing an inch too big, something his Spanish breeder had omitted during negotiations. From the moment the disappointment registered, he became as casually disposable as those bin bags of clothing, and that's what Jemima had attempted to do. Siobhan began to seethe with a rage like she'd never experienced. And what about Veronica? No, Gabriel wouldn't get a second crack at her sister. This time, all the money and security in the world wouldn't protect the Hell Queen and her thug from retribution. The only trouble was how to do it, without taking herself out with them. Flora's lids opened slowly, her eyes still swollen and bleary. She rubbed her nose on the fabric beneath her and got a shock when it expanded and retracted. Evan hadn't left the bed last night when he really should have. Trying not to move, she logged which of her shameless body parts had forgiven him. Her boobs had forgiven his abs. Her groin had forgiven his crotch. Hell, her whole body was forgiving him all over. Evan's heart beat slow and steady under her palm, as soft breaths whistled through his nose and tickled her eyelashes. Flora amused herself by counting the slight creases from weather and copious laughter. He looked like a fallen angel, all pale and golden and rosy. Bah, she chastised herself. Angelic my arse. Still, his lips, God, his lips were inviting. All she had to do was tilt up a little. She could kiss him, and he'd probably not waken. Then she could go back to being indignant. While this argument raged internally, Evan's arms drifted around her waist, his fingertips finding the hollows at the base of her spine. He was still soundly asleep, unaware of Flora's indecision. How easy it was to lie there fantasizing, before the anxiety of the situation built a fresh head of steam and the dog started barking to go out. Easy to pretend life could be like this every day. Fuck it, she muttered, and reached up to match her mouth to his. With lips puckered, Flora opened her eyes to find Evan's chilly blue ones watching in amusement. Now then, Flora, what do you think you're up to? Flora unpursed her lips, ran her tongue over them and blushed. Nothing, she muttered. No? Because from here it looked like you were going to kiss me. Yeah, right, after what you did. As fast as she could think, he had her flipped over, using his body weight with a daring lack of civility. Flora found herself pinned from her ankles to her chest, Evans breathing hard and hot as he whispered in her ear, "But we already decided you forgave me for that." She opened her mouth to argue and found a deft tongue inside it, soft full lips smothering her rebuttal. She made some vague noises as she continued to protest, but Evan was too persuasive. He circled her tongue with his, stroking and caressing, while his lips captured and tugged without mercy. Flora sank under his spell. He was pulling her under. She didn't know how it happened, but her hands were beneath his shirt, and as Evan pulled back from her mouth, she realised her nails were carving out patterns on his back. "That's how a good Scotty boy says good morning," he said smugly. Flora could feel her features unfurling from kiss face to indecision, and he frowned in response, his eyebrows making a V that matched his stubbly widow's peak, the hair 2 shades redder now that it was cropped. Evan's posture relaxed, and he tried out a rueful grin. The man never seemed to hold a sour or worried mood for long, and Flora wished that she had the same talent. "Don't worry your bonny head so much, hen. A kiss was all I was looking for, and I know I don't even deserve that much." He stroked the hair away from her face and kissed the beauty mark on her cheekbone. "The Bobby can wait, 'cause we know I made it a big ask for you to trust me." He dusted his lips across Flora's neck. "When you're ready, we'll be here." The next words were purposely muffled as Evan sank his teeth gently into her skin. "And maybe he'll have bought some lube with the last of his pennies." Flora suppressed a giggle as his bristle tickled a sensitive spot. "Should I be more concerned about anal sex or you discussing your penis in the third person?" Evan responded by sneakily rubbing the ridge in his jeans along the crease of her inner thigh, making Flora gasp and shudder. He sat upright and laughed and tried to run his fingers through his hair, his expression changing rapidly. "Shit, I forgot I'm bald." Flora slung one leg out from the quilt, cocked it back and kicked him soundly in the chest, making him fall backwards and land with a bump on the floor. "Ow," he complained as the dogs below began to bark for attention. She leaned over the bed and found him splayed out like a squashed bug, trying not to laugh as Fillmore and Riley lavished him with morning dog breath kisses. Careful, Evan. I think you're becoming a dog lover. I'm a Flora lover. Love Flora. Love her dogs. A moment of silence followed as Evan blinked, realising what he'd just said. He hadn't just said it, he'd felt it and meant it. His mouth formed an O as he tried to find the words to cover his little slip. It was too late, and it was worth it to curb his response because of the look of pure joy and wonder on Flora's face. You said it. Not exactly, but in that tone of voice I could hear it. You really said it. Nobody ever said they loved me. Only Freya. She sat back on her heels, her face dreamy-eyed and puffy. That look was worth pain, sexual frustration, and every penny in his currently on-hold bank account. You know, if you want me to feel less embarrassed, you could say you loved me too. Flora flipped onto her back and took a moment to bury her face in the bedspread. She sat back up, now gleefully wide awake. No way, Evan. I still need major grovelling, and you should probably be pooper scooper for at least a week. Then I might consider, just consider, responding to that. Evan grinned. He didn't need a fucking confirmation. Flora loved him. That kind of relief didn't lie. I'm off for a wash. Evan bent and snagged a quick peck on the lips. We've got dogs to walk, Flora. Get your smug ass out of bed before I forget I'm trying for nobility. It had just about turned lunchtime when Evan was startled by a knock on the door. Flora was on a home visit with the black poodles, and the house seemed deadly quiet without them. There was a soft woof from Riley, but Fillmore and Trike were content to wait and see who it was. He risked a peek through the net-curtained window, puffing out a relieved breath when he spotted the black hair and Roman nose of PC Bobby. Officer Preston, nice to see you again. Bobby put his hand out and offered Evan a firm handshake. Mr. McElroy, I'm just following up on the other night. How's your head? Nice hair. Very badass. Evan rubbed his nearly bald scalp. It didn't hurt, and the last couple of hours all he'd felt was so damn happy. Everything was a mess. He was quite worryingly in love, and it all felt confusingly right and very, very surreal. I'm good. I remembered something about the other night, and Flora and I have been looking into it. I know already. Fiona likes to keep me updated. It's kind of why I have one of the best crime-solving records in the county. Evan smiled, glad not to have to recount the whole thing. And presumably you found Gabriel Smith and you need me to identify him? Preston's hands went to his duty belt. I only wish that were true. There's no sign of him at the address we have on file, which is a bungalow in Brigley Norton, 5 miles away. I've had a look in the windows and I'd be surprised if he were living there. There's no furniture, no bed, and the neighbours haven't seen him in about a fortnight. We had trouble catching him the first time around. He's more slippery than a layer of olive oil on black ice. Flora is pretty worried about the dogs. Smith threatened to come after them, so I think you need to talk to her boss at the hall. She's the one who might know how to find him, and not a word about me. She doesn't know I'm here. Bobby's stoic expression cracked slightly. Monkey balls. About that, I'm sorry. I've already been there, and I didn't realise there was any big secret. He paused and scratched his head. If it's any consolation, she didn't seem the least bit surprised. Maybe there's no cause for concern. Evan's belly chose that moment to rumble, and he wasn't sure whether it was hunger or anxiety. Flora was not going to like this at all. Anyway, I wanted to reassure you I'll keep my eye out for Smith. I'll check back on his house when I can. You never know, he might show up. I wish there were more I could do, but I'm a one-man band and usually stretch pretty thin. Flora has my card, but here, you take one too. If you find yourselves in a bind, call my personal mobile. It's the easiest way to get me. I don't want either of you to mess with this cretin without police help. Last time we got him, it was for small potatoes. The worst of what we knew wouldn't stand up in court. Great. You'd better not tell me anything else. I have a bad habit of blabbing to my girl, and I think she imagines the worst as it is. In that case, she would be well prepared. I'll see you around, Mr. McElroy. Just Evan is fine, as long as I can call you Bobby. That's the deal. And remember, don't hesitate to call. If I find out you tackled this without me, first name terms won't be any protection. Bobby smiled to soften the words, but he'd made his point. Evan nodded and watched him stride briskly up the lane. The young officer didn't know you should never tell a Scotsman no, and Flora wasn't here to use feminine wiles to distract him. He shut the door for a second and studied Trike, Fillmore and Riley. What do you say, guys? Is it time I introduced myself to Lady Jemima? Trike whined and Fillmore waggled his brows. Christ, Evan thought, even the dog's at it now. Flora was congratulating herself on a job well done as she tootled her way home to Brigley Prior. The house she'd just left was ideal for one of the poodles, a lovely young family who'd asked lots of questions and could barely wait to roll around on the floor with them. Any one of the 3 dogs would be suitable, and now they were gaining confidence they should cope with being split up. The success gave Flora new hope she'd find equally good homes for the rest, and it was remarkable how different she felt for getting out of the village, like stumbling on a patch of visibility amidst a thick shroud of fog. As she entered the driveway, struggling not to take the gatepost with her, she noticed a new car parked out front on the gravel. Not sure what fresh menace would ensue now she was home, she did a double take as she spotted a very beguiling and very recognisable butt hanging over the wall behind Lady J's house. No sooner had she recognised Evan's gluteus maximus than it disappeared out of sight. Brain racing to horrifying conclusions and hesitant to stop in sight of the hall, Flora drove a little way further and parked blocking the road. Not much else she could do when there was no handy passing place. Praying Daphne, Parsley and Benny wouldn't alert anyone by barking, she locked the car doors and climbed the wall onto the fence, hoping dearly she could intercept Evan behind the house before anybody saw him. Flora swore under her breath as she struggled to find some purchase, and a previously useful muscle twanged in her thigh. Even without physical exertion, her smart skinny jeans cut off most of her blood supply, so by the time she was over the wall with scrapes on her palms and scuffed knees, she was red-faced and disgruntled. "Leave the man alone for 2 minutes and he's up to fucking mischief," she muttered under her breath. "He's going to get himself spotted and me fired, and he better have locked up before he left for this little covert op, or I'm going to wring his sodding neck." Flora edged along the wall, ducking down low and trying to avoid the worst of the nettles and dead brambles. Evan soon came into view. Absorbed in what he was doing, he appeared to be spying through one of the rear windows. His scalped head, the tops of his ears, and his big baby blues would likely be visible above the wall. "Evan!" Flora hissed from about 10 feet away. "Shit! Fucking hell!" he replied a bit too loud for comfort. He dropped a hand to his chest and took a big breath. "Christ, woman! Give me a heart attack, why don't you?" "You? What about the one I just had when I pulled in? Lady Jemima's car is out front and she's got company. Somebody's going to see you. See the pair of us now." "Yeah? Well, maybe it's about time somebody did." "No," she exclaimed. "Come on, come away." Flora grabbed him by his elbow and tried to yank, but he remained stubbornly rooted in place. "Flora, come see with me." He pulled her towards him and gently nudged her closer to the wall, dropping down and cupping his hands together, offering up a boost. She stuck her nose in the air and ignored him, refusing to even glance towards the house. Loud moaning began to drift towards them, loud enough to penetrate the double glazing and sail through the crisp spring air. Evan's eyebrow cocked, challenging Flora's curiosity. "I don't want to know whatever little perversion is going on over that wall," she gritted out through her teeth. "Flora, Bobby called on me not 10 minutes ago. Lady J knows that I'm living with you, so I decided I might as well make myself known, except nobody answered the door. Siobhan's nowhere to be seen, and you could hear this frigging wailing even from the other side of the building. Evan, I neither want to see or hear who Lady J is having sex with. A noise like a strangled tomcat split the air, and Lady J's poodles, trapped somewhere inside the house, began to respond hysterically. A deep male voice groaned loudly, "Shut it, you little bastards!" followed by the renewed thump of what could only be a brass headboard careening against a wall. Evan slung his left arm in the direction of the caterwauling. Because what if it's him? Gabriel. And if it isn't him, what if it's Bobby? He's the one who blabbed to Jemima, and he walked down the lane to visit me. That could be his car parked out there. Are you mad? It can't be Bobby. Would you dare risk the wrath of Fiona? Plus he's a policeman. Flora looked appalled at the mere suggestion. Yes, and policemen get caught shagging inappropriate people all the time, just like us regular indiscriminate shaggers. He wouldn't shag Lady J, Flora whispered vehemently. Even though I don't know him that well, I'm pretty sure he's got standards. Flora's eyelids flickered towards the house as some severe grunting ensued. Come on, Flora, let's have a peek. You can't tell me you're not curious. If it is Gabriel in there, we need to find Bobby, if he's still around. We could catch the bastard with his pants down. Evan cupped his hands back together and gave her a look. She sighed heavily, realising how hopeless she'd become. He could ask her to commit any number of ridiculous acts, and she'd probably be stupid enough to do it. Evan gave Flora a boost, finding it hard to ignore her lovely chunky bottom, just inches away from his mouth. He sank his teeth into it playfully, stifling a laugh at her muffled shriek. She wobbled precariously, and he wedged his shoulder into her groin, noting the sexy way her breathing hitched in response to the contact. Can you see who she's with? Flora rested her elbows on top of the wall and kept her left cheek flat to the surface, trying to avoid her whole head being exposed. No, Jemima's on top, with her back to the window. Goodness me, that guy's going to have a sore willy. You should see how she's bouncing on it. She's going at him like he's Peter the Purple Pogo Stick. He's likely to end up purple too. Evan choked back a laugh at Flora's commentary. You've got really strange TV knowledge for somebody in their 20s. Ah, well, Mum was a telly addict with boxes and boxes of videotapes. She found it less hassle to watch television than run a business or care for her animals. That's how I got hooked on Fillmore and Riley. Gareth Norman? I mean, he's 60-something now and still flipping gorgeous, and I always wanted to have Sharon Taylor's hair. Flora pointed to the angular bob and heavy fringe, which, now that she mentioned it, apart from being the wrong colour, was a dead ringer for the actress. Something softer would suit her much better, though. Cool names for dogs, too, he replied. Flora squirmed on his shoulder. Geez, Evan, this is really hard to watch. I think this silly bugger's crossed the pleasure-pain threshold. She'd no sooner spoken when yelps of distinctly masculine pain met Evan's ears, followed by the sharp thwack of an implement hitting bare flesh. Oh, fucking hell! She's clouting him across the thighs with the biggest hairbrush I've ever seen. Flora scrunched her eyes together and winced. I think Lady J's got a clear case of penis envy. Either that or she just hates men. Evan shuddered. Without a doubt he's a braver man than me, whoever he is. If you ever found yourself in her claws, you, the Bobby, and your ginger pubes would meet the surgical blade on my clipper. I do not have ginger pubes, Evan was outraged. They're tawny brown. In denial much? I bet they're redder than Ron Weasley's. Flora had the audacity to laugh at her own joke, which upset her balance and sent her toppling into his arms. He hugged her close, and she giggled. Ginger or not, you can't wait to see 'em. A new voice sounded from behind them. Okay, what's going on back here? Flora and Evan spun in tandem, promptly toppling into a dead blackberry bush. Siobhan winced at the loud snap of brittle branches and tried to yank Flora up. Siobhan, come join the party. We're watching School of Motoring porno starring your second cousin. She was becoming a little too giddy for subterfuge, and Evan had to give her a stern look. Sorry, she whispered loudly. How did you know we were here? Because I was coming down to talk to you and found your car blocking the driveway. If you were trying to avoid discovery, you might have thought about the 3 poodles on your back seat, all of them facing this wall and whining for you. I can't believe you climbed over in that outfit. Flora gazed in scepticism at Siobhan's pure wool coat and fancy trouser suit. Yeah, I don't know how you got over in those pants. Siobhan winced and apologised immediately. Sorry, I didn't mean that. She barely glanced at the mud on her hems and scuffed patent heels. It's only Jemima's cast-offs. I'll still be in them later when I have to plunge her toilet. She sounded thoroughly depressed, like she'd hit the wall, and it had been a long time coming. Flora glanced back towards the hall. This is getting ridiculous. I've got to move the car, and I might wait here forever and never see this guy's face. Stupid Gabriel Smith could be smashing in my window, making off with Benny Parsley and Daphne while I'm watching Lady J's skinny old orange peel arse bouncing. You know about her ex-husband? Siobhan seemed surprised. Yes, Siobhan. No thanks to you, Evan growled. He's the guy who tried to attack Flora on the fens. He's also responsible for lamping me a good one outside the pub the other night. I would have thought that Lady Jemima's psycho hubby with a passion for hurting animals might have been worth a casual mention. Hey, I'm sorry, but I only just found out myself that he's back. Believe me, I'm not happy about it. Flora butted in. You two stay here and hash this out if you want. I'm going back before the postman, the milkman, and the Jehovah's Witnesses show up. Flora pulled the sleeves of her jacket straight and yanked her foot out of a patch of sucking mud. Don't you want to find out who it is? No, Evan, I really don't. I want to go home before my ears start bleeding. Besides, Siobhan is more likely to recognise whoever it is. Flora turned on her heel and marched away. She'd gone about 20 yards when curiosity made her turn to see whether they were still watching. It was distinctly gratifying to note that Evan was leaving Siobhan to climb the wall by herself, her toes struggling for purchase between the cracks in the brick. Good, because she didn't like the idea of Evan with his hands on another woman, especially one that bartered money for services rendered. She sighed and hiked herself back over the wall with a thump. A few stitches in her inseam popped, but she was forced to laugh at the sight of 3 perfectly synchronised poodles wagging their tails, the insides of her car windows covered with hot, steamy nose marks. They whined in delight as Flora started the engine. You're such good dogs. Let's go home and eat chocolate and bonios. I might even have both myself. So, can you tell who it is? Siobhan squinted. Hang on, I can't see yet. Wait a second. They're changing positions. You're lucky. Usually she always stays on top. How do you know that? Evan put his hand up. Forget it. I don't want to know. Just tell me who the guy is. Oh my lord, that's Terry the butcher. I'd know that hairy ass anywhere. Really? The two of you share many men, do you? Siobhan tipped her retroussé nose haughtily. I'm glad to see your opinion of me is only getting higher. No, I have first-hand knowledge because Terry applied to be an escort. He stripped off in my kitchen, without fair warning, I might add, completely neglecting to mention that he flies commando. My eyeballs have never seen so much body hair. He's got more than the wild boar carcasses in his abattoir. She shuddered. I can't face getting my meat there anymore because I keep picturing all of that hair rubbing across the produce. Evan shook his head. Well, it's a good job you're so fucking perfect, Siobhan. How would you manage to cope with a few human flaws? I'm not that shallow, Evan. Right now you are, love. How else could you get up every morning and come work for that piece of work in there? I needed a job. It's not like I like it. No, but the perks aren't bad, are they? He gestured to her expensive clothes and she blushed. Who the hell cares what you think? Oh, I think you care, Siobhan. You see, I try not to judge people by body hair or the sound of their accent. If I did, I'd put you down for a spoilt, stuck-up rich bitch, when the truth is you're a half-decent woman who's let her head get turned by proximity to money and possessions. In a rare flash of seriousness, Evan's pale eyes burned like sky-blue topaz. I think you've become more focused on that than on doing the right thing. This whole escort business is about reclaiming power. You want to be the one in charge for a change. Meddling with people's lives while you build up stacks of cash. Well, take a good hard look in that window and see yourself a year or so from now. You've learned manipulation from the best. Evan took a breath and pressed pause on his rant. Siobhan's lips pursed together as she took a long glance in at Lady Jemima. She dropped away from the wall and reluctantly met Evan's gaze. You don't know me. Nobody does. Evan softened slightly at the patent exhaustion in her voice. Well, prove me wrong, hen, or yourself right. Help Flora and me take down Lady J's ex. Quite how I can make that happen I don't know yet, but the more allies we have the better. You won't have access to her fancy wardrobe at the end of it, but at least you'll have your self-respect. Siobhan was thinking about it when the first faint scent travelled in their direction. The crisp, midday air suddenly smelled like bonfire night, and Siobhan turned her head towards the lodge cottage a mile away. Evan sniffed. Why does it smell like something's burning? Fire! She wailed at the top of her lungs. The cottage is on fire! And the concept of spying in secret vanished in a puff of acrid-scented smoke.